Alright, welcome to my very first pattern tutorial here on YouTube. I'm going to be showing you how to make one of the three not so mini whales, as I would like to call them, because these ones fit in the palms of your hand. It's got a nice little squish to it, and usually like the mini whales that you would see at a market are probably like this big in comparison to this one. So this one fits in the palm of your hand nicely. It was a size that I've been wanting for my markets, but I couldn't find, so I made, and I'm going to share it with you guys for free here on YouTube, so you guys can make some of these not so many whales yourself. Now, as you can see, I have safety eyes in this one. I have some embroidered happy eyes on this one, and then just some embroidered eyes on this one. So I'll be showing you how to put all three eyes in place, because this is a beginner-friendly video. So I'm going to be walking you through the steps and processes on how to make the whales as a disclaimer. If you know how to crochet already and you just want to make one of these not so many squish whales, I do have my Ribblr in the description. I posted the written version there for free. So if you're only here for the written version of this pattern, you're going to write it down anyways. Just go to my Ribblr, click it, put it in your wish list, and it's free to do so, and, you know, supports me. But if you need the beginner guide onto how to do this, maybe you need help with the eyes, you don't know how to do it, I'll show you step by step how I make these whales, and they're fun to pat around. I can't stop squishing them. They're so fun. But I'll get into materials. Alright, we are on to materials here that you're going to need. The thing that you'll need for every single thing that you're using with crochet first comes your scissors. I have a nice little rose gold pair here that I'll be using. I use weight 6 super bulky yarn, so I am using an 8mm hook, which will look like that. As you can see, it says 8.00, and then there's the M's. It gets cut off because of my hook. But this is a custom hook that I have. This hook is a boy hook. I don't know, it's just the brand's name. But it's 8mm, and I like the grip that it provides. You'll need a stitch marker of your choosing. This one is a lever back clasp, so it flicks out like that, and then you can just push it closed. I prefer these ones personally. If you like to use yarn, I've seen people use paper clips. If you use a traditional stitch marker, it's your choosing. There is a tapestry needle, or any needle that you have to close your plushies with. You can use sewing needles, you can use plastic needles, you can buy them in bulk at Walmart. So I use this one personally just because I liked the curved edge, which you'll see why later. You'll need some polyfill stuffing. Obviously, this is a must need when you are making an amigurumi piece for crochet or knitting, anything that you're using. But you can also use yarn scraps. So let's say you fastened off too quick and you have this much yarn left over on your hook. You can cut this out and you can mix this in with the stuffing and stuff it inside of a plushie so you're not wasting it, which I'll show you how to do when we get to the stuffing part at the end of the pattern. But that was just there to help you visualize and remind you that you will need it. You're going to need your two colors. You have your main color, which I have this giant ball of Sweet Snuggles Light in the color blue, and then a very small ball of Burnette Blanket in the color white. And I did what you didn't have to do, because I actually own a little scale right here to measure out my yarn. So you need 32 grams of the main color of your choosing, and then 8 grams of the secondary color of your choosing. So keep that in mind. It doesn't take that much yarn, so you can make a lot of these realistically out of one ball if you were to do that, because I'm doing these for markets. So it works out perfectly for me. And optionally, if you were going for stitch marker, if you're going for safety eyes, you will want to grab your safety eye pair. These are just the ones that I put in here. I don't personally like using safety eyes. I prefer embroidered eyes on some plushies. But if you're going safety eyes, that's optional. And if you want more of an embroidered look, like that one or this one here, then optionally you'll want some black yarn. This is Burnette Blanket in the color black. So let me move these out of the way again. They're getting in the way. I have my yarn end here, and I'm going to grab my hook, because that is the first step of any pattern that you are going to read, is to get your start on. And the most traditional way to start is by slip knotting onto your hook and then doing a magic ring. Although I don't use slip knots personally, so you'll see like my little cheat sheet on how to do that. But first we're going to do the magic ring, which is more traditional, and then I will show you the less traditional chain 2 method, which I prefer. So for your magic ring, you're going to want to take your tail and fling some of it over 2 of your fingers like this. You're then going to wrap it around to form an X over the 2 fingers. So wrap around and form this little X here. I'm grabbing it with my pinky like that. And then you will take your hook, go underneath the first piece. This is why I don't do magic circles. I'm holding it too tight. You're going to go underneath the first line in that X like so. So you go underneath this first one, and then you catch the second one here into a loop. I totally missed that on the camera. We'll do it again. So under the first loop, catch this one, and then flip. So then you have this little magic circle. So if this is how you're going to continue, you chain 1 from here, and then you keep putting stitches into this. So I'm going to go 1 stitch, 2 stitch, 3 stitch, 4 stitch, 5 stitch, 6 stitch, just to show you what a magic circle would look like. This isn't the pattern per se. So then you would have this, hypothetically, you would have your preferred stitch count here, this part, and then the tail. So you would then pull the tail to close, but it doesn't work that well with bulky yarn. So you would pull the tail to close, and then it would turn in like so. It would just turn into a little ball. But I'm just going to unravel this because that's not the way I do it, and I have to show you the other way as well. So that's how you do your magic ring in a quick minute or less. How I slip knot onto my hook. I'm just going to change hands real quick. I keep my hook here. I have my yarn. I put it over the hook. I take this piece of yarn over this one, and then this little tail here that you see, I put it underneath and through the hole to make a quote-unquote slip knot. That's just how I do it. So over the hook, put it over the yarn, and then take the tail underneath and through that hole. So that's how I slip knot, so to speak. That's not how you're supposed to. It's just how I do it. It's the easiest way that I have found, and I've stuck by it ever since I started crocheting. So what you want to do is you're going to want to chain. So say this is your slip knot you're looking at. You're going to go over with your yarn and through that loop. So now you have 1 chain on your hook. So you're going to take this loop, go over, and then pull through. So then you have 2 chains on your hook here. And I'll just show you a couple more times just so you get the feeling of it. You would yarn over, pull through the hoop, you have the loop still, yarn over the hook, and then pull through the loop. And then you can see it is making the chains behind you. But you only need 2 for this method, so I'm going to pull them back a little. So when you're looking at your 2 chains here now, you're going to go into the first chain that you have off your hook here. Boop. You're going to yarn over and pull through, and then you would have 2 loops here, and you just pull through. So you have now 1 stitch and a small hole here still. So go back into that original first chain, yarn over, pull through. Once again, you'll have 2 loops here, and you pull through that. So go through the first chain, yarn over, pull through, and then pull through both loops on your hook. That is going to make 1 stitch each time you do that. And depending on the pattern you're looking at, sometimes you'll only need to do 4 stitches, sometimes you'll need to do 6, sometimes you'll do 8. Those are the most popular numbers to start off with. I'm going to do 8 here for round 1. So you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I need 1 more. I'll show you how to count them in the next row when there's more, and you can actually get a better visual guide. But same for the magic ring. You can just pull on that a little bit, and it will close off into a little hole. So this is round 1. So what you're going to want to do is get your stitch marker now and set it aside. Mine's just a little book. Excuse me. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, I was counting myself. You're going to go into your first stitch here, and I'll show you anyways. So you see the little V's that you have here? Those are a stitch. So I'm going into the first one, yarn over, pull through, and I have to do increases for this round, so I'm just going to do that real quick to put the stitch marker in. Put your stitch marker in your round. I put it in the first stitch of every round. Some people prefer to do the last stitch of every round. I just prefer to do the first stitch, so mine will go there. And then we will go into the next stitch, which is right here. Go through there, make 1 stitch, and then an increase is a stitch in the same exact place. So you're going to go back into that same one and then come back and then make another stitch. So we're going to stitch in the next stitch, and then this little hole where we just stitched, we're going back into that and making a second stitch in there. And you can see it is making it look bigger. That it's exactly what we want. So you're going to do 8 increases around, and you'll have a total of 16 stitches in this round, which I'll show you how to count as soon as I get towards the end. I've been crocheting for a few years now, so if you're not as fast as me, that's okay. You'll get there one day. If you're faster than me, why are you not just looking at the written version? Why are you watching the video format? But I'm back around at the last stitch, and as you can see, my stitch marker is here, so I know that this round is finished. So I'm going to show you how to count your stitches to make sure you are on the right track. I'm going to remove the stitch marker. So here is one little V that you have, and in order to tell it, I'm just going to show you with my hook. There is a back loop here on 1 stitch, and then a front loop here on the same stitch, which forms this little V. Usually you go in between both, like that. So it'll go through 2 loops. But that's how you tell your V stitch. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then 16 where my yarn is currently. So I am at the correct stitch amount, so I'm going to move on to row 3. So once again, we did 8 stitches in your magic circle or 2 chain method, and then we did 8 increases around to make the circle bigger. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a method to keep growing the size of your whale. So you're going to go through your first stitch and do a stitch like normal, and I'm just going to throw my stitch marker in there real quick. Never lose your round placements. And then you're going to do one of those increases again where you go through once and then twice. So now you have 3 stitches here, and you're going to repeat that method around. You're going to do single stitch, and then you're going to do an increase stitch. So you're going to repeat this around your circle that you have here. Allow your yarn ball to fight you. That's how you know you're crocheting correctly. But you're going to repeat this around 8 times, and you should have a total of 24 stitches. Sorry, I read the wrong line for a second. Of 24 stitches at the end of your row here. So I'm just trying to get there so that way we can go on to the 4th row after this. We only have 1 more row of increasing after this, and there are 2 optional ways to do that once we get there. I have only a few stitches left, so the rambling will end momentarily. Okay, here's your last stitch. Do your increase, and my stitch marker tells me this is the last stitch. So optionally, there are 2 ways that you can go about your next row here. The traditional way is to do 1 stitch, 2 stitch, And no, I didn't forget. We're putting that stitch marker back in my first stitch. So I have 2 stitches, and then you would do an increase in the 3rd stitch. And then you would do a second. So 1, 2 regular stitches, and then your increase. Now there's nothing wrong with doing this method. It's the more traditional method. So then you would do 1 stitch increase, 2 stitch increase, 3 stitch increase, 4 stitch increase, and you would keep going hypothetically however big you were trying to get your plushie. But if you would like it to look a little bit more appealing, only because if you're doing that method row after row after row, it will look like it, and it will create like these corners. So let's say you had corners here. It'll create corner increases look on each of your animals, and I don't personally prefer that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an increase row on an off strand. So I'm going to stitch 1, and instead of doing this regular stitch and then increase, I'm going to increase in this stitch. So you'll have 1 single stitch, and then you'll increase, and then you do the row as usually would. You do 1 stitch, 2 stitch, increase, 1 stitch, 2 stitch, increase. And then you would repeat that 7 times around in total for this row, giving you a total of 32 stitches by the end of this row for your 4th row. Now, if you're doing this method where you're trying to defer, I'm going to use the term, your plushie of doing 1 stitch increase and then 2 stitch increases, and then you were to do 3 stitch increase and then 2 stitch increase, 4 stitch increase around your plushie, it would still come out the same size. The only difference is you wouldn't be able to tell that you increased for however many rows that you were increasing. So it gives just a slightly better finish in my opinion of crocheting. So it's just something I personally like to do. But like I said, if you prefer doing it the more traditional way of just 2 stitch increasing, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just personal preference, which is why I'm showing you both ways to do it. So when you get back to your last thing here, you'll see you'll have 2 stitches, and then you'll have your increase, and you have a leftover stitch at the end of your row, because you can see this is my first stitch and there's 1 left over. So because we did just 1 stitch and then increase, this is just 1 single stitch. If you were doing the 2 stitch and then increase around for this row, you would land with the last stitch of your row being an increase. So you should have 32 stitches here. So you can count your V's to check, or you can just count while you're going in the row, which is probably the easier preferable method because you're just doing single stitches this round anyways. So I'm going to stitch 2 and then put my stitch marker back in there. Don't forget that. So 1 stitch, 2 stitch, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. My stitch marker keeps hitting my table here and making like a little noise. But we'll just single crochet around the rest of the way, and I'll meet you guys back here. Alright, so here I am with my finished row, and I do have 32 stitches on here. So you're going to do single stitches around, so you should keep your total of 32 stitches for the next few rows, because rounds 5, which we just finished 5, so now 6 to 9 are all single crocheted rows. So ideally there's 5 rows of single crochet, 4 if you don't want to include the 5th row that we just did. So I'm going to just do some single crochet rows, and if you lose track of your rows, like if you don't keep track in your head of which one you're doing, I will show you how to also count the rows visibly, like you can count your stitches here, so like 1 stitch, 2 stitch. I'll show you how to count your rows as well, So I'm going to get a couple rows ahead and argue with my yarn ball a little bit more, and then I will show you how to come back and count. Alright, I just did my last stitch of this round, so I'm going to take out my hook and my stitch marker, but I'm going to pretend like I lost my place. I don't know what round I'm on anymore, and I need to figure out how to count my rounds to see where I am at. So you see your magic circle or chain 2 method that you started with here. It has the little circle right there, which you can see, but you can also see clearly all the different stitches that you've worked with. I like to start from the magic circle. So this is 1, so round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4, round 5, round 6, round 7, and round 8. So I need to do one more row of single stitches because I'm only at 8 out of 9. But if you are going to go this way, you can see the difference in the marks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. So I'm only at round 8 out of 9. Which means I need to do it again. So I need one more single crochet row. But I wanted to show you how you could count your rows in case you lost place of your rounds, because sometimes you're not counting round 1, round 2, round 3 whilst you're crocheting. So that way you have a way of knowing what round you are on if you do lose your place, because it happens to everybody who crochets, and if they said it doesn't happen to them, then they're using a row counter, because I don't understand how it hasn't. But we're going to continue this row and then I'll pop back in with you. Okay, I have my 9 rounds now here, so I'm going to take the stitch marker out for this round, and you will see why, because this is a no-sew pattern. Woo! So we're making the tails and the fins within this round. So if we gander back here at my stitch, you'll remember that I said that there was a back part and a front part here. So you can see it a little bit better if you were to go, this is the back loop and this is the front loop here. So we want to go into the back loop only and pull up a stitch. Now, if you were to continue doing back loop only stitches, I'll explain what they do really quickly. It would create a small ridge, which would create this little line here. You can see the difference in between here and there where they are. It creates a little line which then you could peep your little hook into to crochet off of. But that's not what we're doing. I only need one of them, and I was just trying to show you the difference. But you only need the one back loop only in your stitch, and then you are going to chain up 3 stitches, cross over. You're going to do a half double crochet, so you're going to want to yarn over before you enter into the second chain from your hook. So if you were to look, this is the one that we're working on, this is the second chain, and this is the third chain. Try to get that closer, 2 and then 3. So we're going to crochet over, go into the second chain, yarn over again, and then pull through, and now you will have 3 loops on your hook. You have 1, 2, and 3. You're going to go through all 3 loops. So yarn over, go through the same chain again, yarn over, pull through the 3 loops, 1, 2, 3, go through all 3 of those for a half double crochet. This is a half double crochet increase, but that's just because it's the look that I'm going for with the tail. You see your third chain here, you're going to slip stitch into that like so. So you'll go in like a normal stitch, you just put your hook through, yarn over, then pull through, and then you'll have the 2 loops. Instead of yarning over and then pulling through for a normal stitch, you're going to take the first loop and just go through the second loop. Then you're going to repeat the process. You're going to chain 3, yarn over, go through the second chain from the hook and make a half double crochet. Again, oh, it's fighting me. because the yarn's low. I needed a smaller ball for this. And instead of doing an increase in this one, we have an extra chain. So we're going to go into the other chain and make a normal half double crochet. And we're going to go back into that first chain from the first fin, and we're going to slip stitch in it there, which is going to give us the little appearance. And then your original stitch, which you back looped into right here, my little fingers poking through, you're going to slip stitch into there. And then you're going to move on to your stitches like normal and just stitch a couple away, and then I'll show you what that looks like. So here is your little tail in total. As you can see, this is the tail that I preferred the most. Each of my little whales have a different tail on them. This was the first try, which I didn't like the look of. This was the second try, which was a little too big. And now we are at my third and final look that I love. I love the little tail look. So the reason I said you don't need your stitch marker is because this stitch where your tail is your stitch marker for this round. But if you would like to put your stitch marker in anyways, you can put it in right here where the tail is, like so. And then you're going to do 7 stitches. So here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now we're going to make one of the fins. So you're going to back loop only stitch into the next one like we did for the tail, and then you're going to chain up 3, 1, 2, 3, and you're going to do 2 more half double crochets in the second chain from the hook and then the third chain from the hook. So 1, and you're going to go into the next one, 2, and then you're going to slip stitch back in the original back loop only stitch. And then you're going to stitch 15 across. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 stitches. So you have your tail where you started, you have your fin on the side there, which looks adorable, and you will be making the face across. So you're going to do the same process for the other fin. You're going to go into the back loop only, make a single crocheted stitch, chain up 3, and then place a half double crochet in the second chain and the third chain from your hook. Then you're going to want to slip stitch back into the back looped only stitch spot to make your next fin. And then you should finish your round off with 7 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you have your 7th final stitch right there next to your tail. So as you can see, it forms the back of the whale, the sides of the whale, and then this entire way across. In between the fins is the front of your whale. So that was round 10 for us. We're going to go on 11, which is going to be single crocheted rows again, but I'm going to show you how to work around the tails and the fins now specifically. So for the tail, you're going to see a lot of random stitch marks back here. There will be a little hole for you to slide your hook into, and you just go into that. So there's our first stitch, and then you're going to go over the tail. So this is where my second stitch is from there. So that's 1, 2. Don't forget your stitch marker this round. the tail is helping you, but not completely anymore, so you're going to want that. So we should still be at our normal count of 32 stitches as we have been, because we didn't do any increases and we didn't do any decreases. So I would check to make sure you have 32 by the end of this row. But you're going to crochet up to the tail. As you can see, this isn't a stitch here, but this one is. So into this stitch. And then for the same thing as the tail, you're going to work on the inside of the fin so it'll stick out. You're going to go into the little loop back there, and then go through that, and then go over to the next stitch. And what that's going to do is it's going to not hide the tail or the fins within the animal. It's going to stick them out over the rounds like so. As you can see, it's sticking out. It's not hidden within the plushie. So when you're looking at it head on, they're out by its sides. So we're going to do this around towards the end, and then I would just double check to make sure you have your total 32 stitch count. And then after this, we are switching to the belly color. So if there is a certain preference you have already about how you like to change your colors, I would change your colors after this row. Alright, so I'm at the last stitch of my round here now, and this is how I prefer to color change. It's just a little bit cleaner in my opinion. So you're going to go through the last stitch for round 11, yarn over, pull through, and you have your 2 loops here as you would for any normal stitch, and instead of pulling through here and ending the stitch, you're going to keep your hook here. You're going to take your scissors and you're going to cut off just a little bit. Leave a little bit for room. And then our blue yarn here is done. Get it out of here. So now you have this. So you have your 2 loops still from a stitch and your yarn tail, and you're going to want your belly color now. So I'm using this white, which fits more in the frame. It is a very smaller ball. You're going to line up the ends of your tails together, and you're going to, instead of taking the blue yarn and then pulling through, we're taking the white yarn and pulling through. And then you're just going to want to knot these 2 ends together. So just wrap them over and then pull through. So take your 2 ends, make like a circle with them, like so. Pull one of them under like we did for our hook. So if you want to see it with the other yarn, pull them over, take one of them underneath the circle and then through it. That's just how I like to knot my yarn. It's probably not the most practical method, but as you can see, now at the end of the row I have only white attached to it, and this was my last round. Here's my stitch marker. So take your stitch marker out. Now all we have is the blue, and then we're working on our white now. But we only have a few more rows to go. So we're going to be working in the back loops only of every stitch on this wheel currently. All 32 stitches will be within your back loops, which will create this little ridge, which I'm not sure is totally noticeable. No, you can see it right there, a little ridge around the entirety of the plushie. It gets a little messed up at the tails, but ignore that. The little ring around, but it also brings the yarn forward, which helps us close easier. So we're going to take our first stitch here. We're going to go into the back loop only and then make a stitch as normal. You're going to do that again, back loop only, make a stitch as normal. And you can see it's already starting to create that ridge. But now you're going to need to do decreases. So if you don't know what a decrease is, it makes your plushie close. It makes it smaller. It's very traditional. That word a lot. So if you're normally doing it, you wouldn't be in the back loops. So I'm just going to show you how you would normally do it. Normally, you would go through both loops, yarn over, and pull through, like how you would do a normal stitch, and you would see your next stitch here. You go through the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, and then you would have 3 loops here, and you would just pull through all 3 loops. So you would go through the stitch, yarn over, have 2 loops, yarn over through the next stitch, pull over, and then you would have your decrease. But like I said, we're going in the back loops only, so go through the back loop only, yarn over, back loop of the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, and you have your decrease. And then you're going to repeat that around for a total of 8 times. So 1, 2 stitch, and then do your decrease. So what this is going to do for your belly is it's essentially going to bring it in closer on a close, and it's going to allow for your whale to have its cute little belly, but it will lay down flat. It's not going to pillow out, so like it's not cupping like this at the bottom. It's allowing it to lay flat, which you want for your not so mini whale. But there's only a few more rounds after this. At the end of this round, for your 2 stitch decrease, you should have a total of 24 stitches. So I'm just going to keep going around. As you can notice, you can see my stitch marker still there. I'm not using it this round only because I did color change, so I can tell where the beginning of my round is. That would be in between these 2 stitches. So I'm going to finish up this little thing real quick and then we'll come back. So I'm back at the last stitch. As you can see, we have that ridge around our whale. Now, if you're not the most comfortable with placing in safety eyes yet, I would take your stitch marker, put it through here, and then just pull this so it won't pull and unravel on you. So just take your loop here where your hook usually goes. So like this, pull it out a little bit. Once again, take your stitch marker, put it on there, and then pull through so it doesn't pull through. And then you would take your safety eyes and then place them in here. I don't have any safety eyes out at the moment. I don't believe so, which kind of sucks for me. But you would take your eye, put it here, and then take your fastener and push it in here. Maybe I'll grab one just to show you. I'll grab one just to show you. I don't have any in this size, which is why I said I don't have one on hand. But just as a point of reference, this is my little safety eye box. You would take a safety eye of your choosing. This one has a wrapper on it. Usually you just peel them right off. So ignore that if that is the case. These things are the worst though to get off of you. So you have your little safety eye here. I'm not going to back mine in obviously. But if you have one like I do where they come with little papers, you want to slip the paper on it. Push that down so it creates the little glitter effect. If you have these eyeballs, I bought these off Amazon. Just Google safety eyes on Amazon. They'll all pop up. Trust me. And you're going to want to place these in between rows 8 and 9, about 6 to 7 stitches apart. So I showed you how to do that. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you're going to take the little hole part and you're going to put it into the stitch. So just, and then you would have it there. And then you would take your backing, flip your plushie inside out to find little peg, and you would just place it like this so the peg and the hole are lined up there, and you would just apply pressure down. If you have a little safety eye back thing, then you could take the peg like this and just push down and push it in there, but I'm not going to use up my safety eye. But let's say that your eye is in this one and you want to place your next eye. How do I know where the next 6 to 7 stitches are? What are those? What are you talking about? These are your stitches. So stitch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so on. So you can see the little ridges in between. So I'd like to take the peg specifically and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you would push it down the row, wherever row you needed it to be on. And then you would safety fasten it in, click your fasten in, and you would have your safety eyes. Actually, these safety eyes aren't so bad looking on this whale. You know what? They're not that bad. They're just a little too big for my liking. But that would be how you figured out your safety eye placement with the use of safety eyes. I'm not going to place mine in because I'm going to show you how to embroider eyes afterwards. So you would then take this back out and move on to your round as normal. Sorry about that. I needed a quick drink break. It's been a long 30 minutes on my part. but you're going to go into your first stitch here, because this was our 2-stitch row, so we're going to do 1 stitch decrease. So do your first stitch. Don't forget your stitch marker, it is your friend, put it in there. And then you're going to do a normal decrease now. None of this row is in the back loops only, it was only the previous row for row 12. Row 13 is just in your normal loops. So you'll do your decrease, go through both loops, yarn over, have a 2 loops, go through again, pull through, and then you'd have your 3 loops, and pull through for your decrease. So you're going to do 1 single stitch decrease around the bottom of your wale for a total of 8 times, and you will have 16 stitches by the end of this row. And after this row, we are going to close it, so you're going to want to put stuffing in. So if you like to stuff like a little bit here, like here's some random fluff that was in my hand. If you want to stuff a little bit here and then keep on closing, you can. I personally like to wait last second to stuff my plushies because I find that it doesn't create like a pillowing effect, I want to say, where your plushie is like overfilling and it'll create these little holes through the animal. Because we are using a normal hook size for it, it will create like the billowing effect. Billowing effect, I don't know what the proper crochet term is for it. I would just prefer to wait a row if you can, if you are comfortable, that is. If you're not comfortable, you can stuff at this row now, it's okay. I won't know the difference. I probably won't. But we are at our last stitch, so just remove your stitch marker and we are actually finished with the stitch marker. So before I lose it, I'm going to place it back in my little jar. I have a little mason jar with some more stitch markers and some hooks. But here is a good example of another little classic crochet plastic hook that you can buy at Walmart. And these are 2 more hooks that I have custom done. So I'm just going to keep them. I keep mine in this little mason jar so I don't lose them everywhere. But we're going to put that aside because we don't need it anymore. Now you're going to just remove your hook for a minute, set it to the side, because now we're stuffing. Or if you haven't put your eyes in yet, you can put your eyes in here too, because you can still reach your hand feasibly in there. But we are going to take our whale and we're going to stuff it. So you want to flip it upside down so the hole is facing us. You're going to want to get your polyfill stuffing. I don't have mine in like the big bag because I buy the 10-pound boxes because I go through stuffing like a madman. So you're just going to see it randomly appear from this corner of this little duffel bag that I have filled with stuffing here. So you're going to take some stuffing. You can pull some of it apart so it doesn't create like rough clumps within your plushie. That's optional if you like to like go the extra mile, and then once it's all fluffed up, take it and put it in that whole opening. Now, I like to think if you can fit your fingers through all the way to the other side like this, it's not stuffed enough. So I'm just going to grab a little bit more. You can unravel it, play with it for a minute if you want. It is nice and soft, and then you're just going to throw it back in that hole. And I do want to show you what I mentioned about having yarn scraps or leftover yarn. So I'm going to reach into the bottom of my bag here. So here is a little bit of some leftover scrap yarns that I have. The black from doing embroidery details, the white from leftover whale bellies on the other 3, some random brown and some random pink bits mixed in with the stuffing. So what you do is you just take a little bit of stuffing and just wrap it around and play with it for a second. Then just take it and stick them all in there. And then just put more stuffing on top over them. So it's just a nice little way to have some extra stuffing. And if you go through a lot of yarn like I do, if you have a lot of excess, it'll really save you, because sometimes it can completely stuff a plushie without the need of stuffing. So it's a really great use for leftover yarn that you have. You can just throw it back into your stuffing bag, which is what I do. I just throw it in there and then I pull it back out as necessary. So I'm going to call this stuffed. I'm just going to throw them. I like going like this just to get it a little bit out of the V-stitches that I'm working in. but this is how I would prefer to stuff it. As you can see, like I could get my finger down there, but there's resistance, which is good. You want that. It means it's stuck. So put our hook back in here. And now we're doing 8 decreases in the row, which is why we don't need our stitch marker because this is our last row. So you're going to do your decreases 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My ball fell on the floor. I'm gonna have to get that afterwards. 7, and then 8. I'm actually gonna grab the ball real quick so it can stay in shot. Okay, back. I have the ball. As you can see, it's still like flailing away from me, but this is my 8 decrease. If you would like to add just a little bit more stuffing here, you can. I don't like doing 8 decreases. I prefer to do 6 decreases. So I'm going to do an additional 2 decreases. So the hole for weaving in is smaller. It's optional if you would like to do it as well. If you're not comfortable with closing off holes, I would decrease 2 or 3 more times like I'm doing currently. And then you're going to leave yourself a bit of a tail to sew in the end close. So my end starts here from the hook. I like to go about a good distance away, so about this much, which is a lot, but when you don't know how much you're going to need, it is always better to have more than less. So I'm just going to snap it right there. I guess I didn't really need the ball anyways, because it's gone now. We're just going to take our hook, and then what I like to do to end it off is I want to slip stitch into the next stitch in the small circle, and then completely pull through the hoop. So you're just going to take the hook here, because you know how when you pull it, it gets loose. We're going to completely pull it after slip stitching, which is going to create a little knot here so your yarn will not unravel when it is pulled. So you have your little circle here, which once again, optionally, you can choose to add in a bit more stuffing at this point. It is personal preference whether you would like to or not. And then you are going to go back and get your tapestry needle or plastic needle of your choice. Once again, I have the little blue ones in there as well that you could use optionally. So you're going to take the end of your yarn and push it through the sewing needle. And I like to do it because I like to take the edge side, put it against here, and then when the fluff starts pulling up on the other side, I just grab the edge and then I pull it. And then you're going to do a small little knot. So wrap the yarn over, go underneath and pull it through. Wrap the yarn over, take the end underneath and pull it through that circle, which is going to keep your yarn on here. And then you are going to have to weave the end of this close. Now here's how I personally like to do it. I like to go through the first one, and you're not going to pull it tight until you're done with the stitch. You're going to go through the stitch on this side, through the stitch on that side, and then repeat that around, going back and forth in between these stitches until you get back to where you started. Go back through it. So essentially you're going crisscross, which is going to make it pull close tighter, and then when you went through all of them, you just pull the string, which will draw in the hole to be closed. And then I just like to throw it and just push it somewhere else. For seeing, optionally, sometimes if your tension is off, it will create little holes here. And I'll show you how to fix that as well. So to move your hook through here, since we're just working with white, just put it through any stitch and you can pull through any stitch and it'll just blend in because it's white, you can't see it. But to close open this little hole that is here, as you can see, I can stick my finger in it. You can obviously see it on camera. Go through the side of one of the stitches, the back of the stitch next to it, and then pull tightly, which will close the gap there, and then you can move the string away, and as you can see, that hole is now closed up. Now, in order to end off this string, you're going to want to knot it to a random stitch. So go through a random stitch hole here. As you can see, there's a bunch of just these random little holes that you can hook and grab into randomly. Just pick one of them. It doesn't really matter, wherever your hook has lined up, and go through. And before you fully pull through and get rid of the loop, take your needle and put it through this loop. So you have your loop here, take your needle and just drop it through there, and then pull. And as you can see, it's making a very small knot. Now, I like to do this just a couple times to really make sure that it's not going anywhere, that it's not going to undo on me. So I'm just going to do it a second time as you just saw, and then I'm just going to pull through. And then when your yarn gets to an end, you've knotted it to the amount of times of your liking, you're going to take your scissors once again and just snip off a little bit. Take this little extra piece and don't waste it now. Don't waste it. You're going to keep it in your hoard of stuffing. Just drop it in there like that. Look, you can't even see it's in there. And you'll use it eventually when you're stuffing your next plushie. And as for this little bit, I just like to take the side or the edge piece of the needle here, and I like to push this piece back into the plushie, into the hole that it has come out of. So if you used safety eyes, your eyes would be about there, then this part is finished, your whale is done, congratulations. But if you would like the look of one of the embroidered ones, which does make these baby safe and baby friendly because you can't pull these out, then I will show you how to do both eyes from my perspective. If you prefer to do it before you've closed up the plushie, well then I'm sorry, it's kind of a little too late now, but I'll show you how to do it in this regard. So what you're going to need now is your black yarn, your scissors, and your needle once again to finish. And then a finished plushie of your choosing, squish, squish, squish. We're using this little whale here, my tables. I kicked the table and it went everywhere. So once again, you're going to need to measure out your yarn, how much you would like to use. Oh wow, there's shadowing in here now. How fun. It's nice and festive. But just take a good decent bit. Like I said, it's always better to have more than to have less. And we don't need our crochet hook anymore, so you can put that away too if that was what you're liking. And once again, like how I attached my hook here in the first place for the weaving in, I'm just going to do that again so it won't go anywhere. So you have your black thread and you have your animal. How am I supposed to do this? Like, you're not explaining it. You're going to take your thing and I'm just going to put it in here. And I'm going to go to this section where I want my eyes to start with the needle, and I'm going to pull the needle, and I'm going to keep going. I want to catch the end of this tail, and we're going to want to leave just a little bit of it. I'm going to fix my table because I kicked it too much. My table's all good now. I kicked it. It was a little out of shot. It was a little out of range. It was acting weird. But we're going to leave this part here, and we will come back to this later, so don't worry about it. It'll look a little funky. But in order to get this version of the eye, which I will do first, you're going to want to just have your yarn where you would like it to be. I place mine about 2 stitches away from the fins on both sides. You're going to want to go up, hold it down with your finger, and then put it down to pick where and how big you would like your eye to look. Obviously, if you're doing a much bigger animal, you can make much bigger eyes. You can make much smaller eyes. You can make even smaller eyes and even smaller but big eyes. It's your choice, personal preference. I'm going to go right about here. This is where I'd want mine. So you're going to go into the stitch of where you would like your eyes to line up, and you're going to want to pull out where you'd like the tip to be. So you're going to pull, and then as you can see, it's going to start to pull the yarn down if you're not careful. You're just going to want to pull some of it back out if that happens, and just keep it nice and snug on your finger. So if you just pull straight like this, it would just create a straight across line, which could be cute if you're making like a sleepy whale, but that's not what I'm showing you to do. So we're going to pull it back up, and we're actually going to go underneath the black thread so it will catch on. It'll look like this. When you go underneath it, you'll have the loop here and this. So that way when you pull, it will pull into your desired triangle. And then you're going to go into the stitch where you pulled from in the beginning, fling it somewhere random, it doesn't matter, and then pull. And that will catch your eye into being a nice little triangle. And I'll show you again on the other side, and then I'll have to pull it all out. Or maybe I'll just make another whale and then show you the other ones. I guess I'll make another whale and then show you the other way. Or I could just pull it. Too indecisive for this today. We're just going to go into the direction of where I would want the other eye to be. We're going to go over there, 2 stitches from the eye again. And I'm going to have to try to match this eye with this eye now. Like if I were to be looking at it from this perspective, I can't have the eye just go like this. It's not going to look right. So I went up 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. So I want to go up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. And then down I went over 2 visible stitches. So 2 visible stitches. I'm going to throw it in here once again. Shoot it up where I would like the tip of my eye to be. Pull, pull, pull. Go underneath this thread. Pull, pull, pull. And that is all set. Then you're going to go into the stitch and go back out to where we originally pulled the yarn in from. So you'll see both aspects. That was my table that just did that. I don't know if that caught on camera or not. But you'll have your 2 ends here and you're going to tie these. So similar to how I've always been tying the knots in this video, you're just going to tie it once, twice, and I like to do 3 times for good measures. And then you're going to take your hook, your needle, and you're going to go through the same stitch and just push it through the belly as I will. And then as you're pulling it, it's going to pull that tail straight into the plushie, which is exactly what you want. Cut your yarn here. You're going to cut it here off your needle. You're going to throw this in your stuffing bags. Come on now, you already know what I'm doing. And then we're going to, once again, take the top of our needle and push that black thread in there. And that's how you would get this version of embroidered eyes. I am going to need to make another whale really quickly to show you the other version. I guess I don't have to. I could just like throw some black yarn on here and then just take it out anyways, right? So let's just get an amount for, let's say, your black eyes. So I'm just going to take a little bit since I'm obviously not using these, but just to show you so you get an idea of how to do the other eyes. We're going to throw our black on here as I normally do, and I showed you. And then now let's pretend that we didn't do this and that this is our front, just so you can get the idea. And we're going to be making these kind of eyes, which are just little cuties. So we're going to pretend like this is our front that we're working with. You're going to go in randomly and then pop out where you'd want your eyeball to be. And once again, make sure you catch the tail with enough distance that it won't go away on you. And I'm just going to go down a little bit more, just so it's got a greater effect. So you're back here, and if you do the triangle, once again, you would do that method. But that's not what we're doing. So now you're going to test how big, so if you want it just to be a singular stitch eye, roughly. So if you'd like it just to look like that, if you'd like it to be a bit bigger, if you'd like to have really big eyes, that's on you. I'm going to go up about 3 visible stitches, so row 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to put my hook through this 3rd row and come back out where my hook began. And we're just going to pull, which is going to create a little line. And then you're going to take your hook and repeat that. Go into the stitch where you want it to be and have it come back out at the bottom where it just came from. And that's twice. And you can do this as many times as you would like for it to look the look that you'd want. There's 3, and we'll go through a 4th time, and we'll go through a 5th time. It really just depends how many you would like to do. But this is how you would do that. I got the tail on there, and the eyes will become 3D depending on how much you bulk them up. But it would look like that, assuming you didn't see this part. So I'm going to move that one to the side since I have to now remove that eyeball. But that's how you would make one of these 3 not so mini whales, whether you made the embroidered eyes I just showed you, the more so happy ones, or if you used safety eyes. That is all that I'm here to show you regarding these not so mini whales. I love this little pattern. It's so cute. It's perfect for all of my market makes because they're just going to be so cute sitting in a little bin somewhere. But that's all I have for you today for this beginner guide. Once again, if you understand how to crochet, I do have the Ribblr link below for the free version still of this pattern on there. I also have multiple different free versions of patterns on there, as well as some upcoming paid patterns that I'm doing. But that's not why you're here. If you'd like to see me make any more little mini makes like these, or if you'd like to see me make bigger patterns that you have in mind, drop them in the comments below because I'll be watching. And if someone says that they want something made and you're the only person that went down and commented it, you're bet I'm making whatever you picked. So if you go down and comment below something that you'd like to see me make for free here on my YouTube, then I'd be more than happy to do it. But until then, this is the end of the video, and I'll see you guys next week.